Glenn, I know that you've been trying to help people getting out. What realistic options are there now for people who do want to get out of Afghanistan but haven't yet? And what role do you see Australia playing in that?
Ash, all is not lost. The Taliban have undertaken to open up Kabul airport to civil traffic, and I understand Turkey is going to be operating that infrastructure. So there are certainly, hopefully there will be opportunities for our people to get out by civil air once air traffic opens up there. Our government does have an obligation. We've issued hundreds of humanitarian emergency visas to people. So there are now Australian visa holders in Afghanistan who need to get out. So the government has an obligation to do what it can to get them out by diplomatic means or by pressuring, by pushing for that opening up of civil air traffic. Our government has a duty of care to these people and cannot abandon Australian visa holders who are left behind.
We heard in Annalise's story about some of the commitments that the Taliban has made in terms of how things are going to progress in Afghanistan. What are you hearing about how the Taliban so far are treating women, are treating those who worked with Allied forces? What reports are you getting from the ground about the sorts of dangers they're in right now?
Look, a number of our clients, our female clients, would be considered high risk based on the Taliban's past practice. So journalists and judges, people in positions of authority, ladies in positions of authority. So there's certainly not a good track record on the part of the Taliban there. But as I say, we're trying to get these people out. They have visas to get out to Australia. We're hoping that the Taliban honours its commitments to not harm these people. Time will tell. So our advice at the moment is for them to lay low and let us keep working with our government to try and get them out.
How does it feel as a former Army officer to see that long list of military hardware left in Afghanistan by the US, and what do you think that means to the world more broadly in terms of the resources now in the Taliban's hands?
Look, I and others have been saying for some time that the greater risk in Afghanistan now is the risk posed by the threat of exported terrorism by ISIS Khorasan, so ISIS-K. And as we've seen in recent weeks, the Taliban have been fighting around the airport with ISIS-K. And as we know, the Taliban don't export terrorism. ISIS certainly does. So I suspect the Taliban will use that military hardware in their fight against ISIS, which at the end of the day is, strategically speaking, is probably a good thing, if we're going to be brutally honest. We need a government in that country to fight this re-emerging terrorist threat posed by ISIS.
And even if that government is Taliban, how do you see a Taliban government in Afghanistan working with the countries that have been sworn enemies for so many years?
Yeah, I think we have to come to the realisation, or we have to acknowledge that the Afghanistan government will be a Taliban government, and we have to hope that they have matured to the point of being able to conduct themselves certainly in a better manner than they did when last in power. But I think the world community, I think that the world powers are beginning to see that they will have to work with the Taliban in certain various areas, as we saw with the US evacuation effort. US forces working to some extent with the Taliban to secure the evacuation of certainly US citizens and some Afghans. So there's already some cooperation happening there. I anticipate seeing more of that into the future, and I think that'll be necessary both for the security of the region, the ISIS threat, but also for the humanitarian well-being of the Afghan people.
Glenn, I appreciate your time and all the work that you're doing to try and help so many more vulnerable people in Afghanistan. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Ash.